We are continuing today in Mishna Yomi, and today's Mishna Yomi assignment is Parak Zayin in Maseches Berachos, Mishnayos Dalit through Hey. Chapter 7, Mishnayos 4 through 5. Mishnah Dalit says as follows: Shlosha sha'achlu ke'echad. If you have three people who had a meal together, Einan rasha'in l'chalik. They should not split up. V'chein arba, v'chein chamisha. And the same thing applies to 4 people who had a meal together or 5 people who had a meal together. The idea being that if 3 people had a meal together, when they bench, they have the ability to bench as a mezumin. If they split up, then they only have the ability to bench as individuals. Therefore, the Mishnah tells us that once they went ahead and ate a meal together, there's an obligation of a mezumin that devolves upon them, and therefore they can split up. That is true if it's 3, 4, or 5. Shisha nechlakin ad asara. If you have 6 people who ate a meal together, they can split up until 10. In other words, between 6 and 10, you can split up into 2 groups, because the mezumin is the same if it's 3 people or if it's 9 people. However, once you get to 10, remember again, as we saw in the last Mishnah, 10 people in minyan have the ability to bench with Elokeinu, the name of Hashem, and therefore once you are a minyan, Einon nechlakin, you cannot split the group, Ad shiyu esrim, until you have 20. At 20, then they have the ability, they have the right to go ahead and split up into 2 distinct groups. Beautiful. That is Mishnah Dalet. Mishnah says as follows: If you have 2 groups who are eating in one home, bisman, so this is like if you could imagine 2 different seudos, 2 different groups eating in one home. So the Mishnah says, bisman shemiktasen roa elu eselu. If we'll call it Group A and Group B. If some of the members of Group A saw some of the members of Group B, hari elu mitzdarfin lezimun, they could combine to form one mezumin unit. So if you can imagine for a moment, let's say you have a hotel and there are multiple banquet halls, and let's say again you have 2 groups eating in 2 different banquet halls, but some people from Group A see other people from Group B. They have the ability, those individuals who see each other have the ability to go ahead and create group cohesion between A and B, to the point that they have the ability now to form a mezumin for benching together. Ve'im lav, but if no members of the group see each other, then elu mezamnin liatzman ve'elu mezamnin liatzman. Then each group will make their own mezumin. Good. Rabbi Eliezer says you cannot make a bracha on wine until you dilute it with water. The wine of the Mishnah was very strong, more like a wine concentrate, and it wasn't normally. If you were to go ahead and drink wine, you would always dilute it with water. It was actually 3 parts water to 1 part wine was their wine water ratio. So Rabbi Eliezer says that you can't drink. People don't drink undiluted wine, to the point that if you drink undiluted wine, he says you don't make a brei pri hagafen. Instead, the Bartanura points out, he says you make a borei peri ha'etz, because it's considered like grapes, not really like wine. Only once you dilute it appropriately do you make the bracha brei pri hagafen. The chamim omrim farchen. Some say no, you can make a hagafen even on undiluted wine. And in fact, interestingly enough, that's how we paskin halacha l'maisa. Shulchan Aruch says that even if you drink undiluted wine, assuming that it's actually drinkable, that one would still recite a borei pri hagafen. Okay, we'll stop over here. Mazel tov on completing the 7th parak of Maseches Berachos, and in Mir Session tomorrow we'll begin with the 8th parak of Tevach.